I'm a pretty active user on this forum online for mothers in my area. It's not just limited to childcare advice, it's a pretty open forum. Recently, there was a post on there that really caught my attention about this woman's marriage, and although people do talk about their husbands and, what are you getting your husband for Christmas and that sort of conversation, this is the first time I've ever seen any serious marriage advice being discussed on this particular forum. This woman was saying that she is very unhappy in her marriage and that she lists a few different things that her husband does that she doesn't like. She says that he's overly critical of everything that she does. He's always contradicting her in front of other people and going against her when she's trying to discipline the children. She says that she has tried to talk to him about it and that he won't listen, and he just accuses her of being too sensitive, and she's just miserable. She didn't say anything in the post about divorce or about leaving him. She just wanted to vent her feelings, I think. She said that she didn't have anyone in her life who she could discuss this with, and she just wanted to have a chat with some other women about the subject. But a lot of the women in the comments were suggesting that she should leave him. They said this is very manipulative behaviour, he sounds like a narcissist. A lot of posts said he sounds like my ex-husband. And of course I see where these posts are coming from. They want this woman to have a happier life and to not be criticised all the time by this man who doesn't seem to appreciate her. But it just got me thinking about how our standards for what we consider to be a successful marriage have changed over time. A lot of the responses that this post was getting were talking about how this woman, the opening posting woman, deserves to be happy. And although I think that's largely true, I don't want her to be unhappy. When you get married, you don't promise to be happy and you don't promise to make the other person happy. That's something that you cannot promise because it's involuntary feeling, right? And you have no idea whether you're going to be happy in this marriage in 20 years, 40 years, or however long. Something that my mother always says, which I haven't really understood until fairly recently, I think, her and my father, who've been married for, I think, over 30 years now, they don't believe in divorce. What that means is it doesn't matter how unhappy you are in a marriage. It doesn't matter if you love each other. It doesn't matter if you hate each other. You are going to stay married because they don't believe in divorce. And I think it's kind of a brutal thing to declare. But I think that was the understanding that our society had up until about 40 years ago or so. The marriage vows that most people take on their wedding day are, to have and to hold, for richer, for poorer, until death do us part. I think that richer, poorer, sickness and health part is our way of saying it doesn't matter if you like it or not. You don't have to like the marriage to be in it. You've probably heard of the old classic film Brief Encounter, which is about an affair between two married people who meet each other at a train station and go on a few dates. I watched the film a few years ago, but I watched it again just today in preparation for making this video. To be honest, it's made in, I think it's 1945 it came out, and it's still very watchable. It's only 90 minutes long, it's got this great soundtrack, the acting's good, and it's one of those old films that I think can still captivate a modern audience. But the values in the film are very out of step with what I would consider to be the values of today's society. When I first watched the film, I thought of it as a kind of tragedy. They love each other very much, but they cannot be together because they are both married and have children. And although they do sort of kiss and hug each other a little bit in the film, they don't ever consummate their relationship. They remain sexually faithful to their spouses. And at the end, the man moves away with his family to a foreign country, and they presumably never see each other again. And when I first watched it, I thought of this film as a romantic tragedy. It's like watching Romeo and Juliet. You're watching it for the drama of this relationship that is so passionate and yet cannot be fulfilled happily because of this obstacle, which is their marriages. But now watching it again, with this new idea of thinking about divorce and marriage in my mind, I think the ending is actually kind of bittersweet. the film is told from the woman's perspective, and we never actually get to see the man's wife and his relationship with her. But the main character, the woman, I can't remember the character's name is Laura. We see her with her husband, and he's a good man. He's polite, and he's nice to her. But it's not a very romantic scene that we ever see with them. They don't. But Laura is able to stay faithful to her husband, not because she loves him, but because she's married to him and she believes it's the decent thing to do. She stays with her husband and remains faithful to him for the sake of their children and for their marriage, but I think also just because that is the vow that she took on her wedding day. Those are the oaths that they made to each other. They promised to stay together and they promised to be faithful, and Laura is serious about that promise. So I think the film is actually a little bit triumphant for her because she manages, despite a great temptation to cheat or to leave her husband, she stays, and there's a lot of dignity in that choice that she makes. Rather than putting her own feelings first, or the feelings of this new guy that she loves, she's putting her family first, and she's putting this sense of duty and the promise that she made above all else. And I think that's really admirable. These days, when a couple gets married, it's usually because they love each other very passionately, very strongly. They want to spend the rest of their lives together. And that's the state that the marriage starts in. But if that were always going to be the case, if this couple were going to love each other just as fiercely on their 4,000th day of marriage as they did on their first day, then why would they need to get married? They could just love each other, stay together because they want to be together, because they make each other happy. I think the idea of marriage is that it's there for when you're not happy, when there's nothing else keeping the couple together, only the promise that they made to each other. That's the only thing they actually have. But these days, divorce is very common, and I think people do end up finding a lot of happiness outside of their marriage after a divorce. People go on to even get married again, have children with a new person, and create a completely new life. So this idea of staying in a miserable marriage in which you don't like the other person, they don't like you, they're treating you badly, and you're probably treating them badly as well if you don't like them. The idea of staying in a toxic situation like that is very old-fashioned, and it's not something that I would feel comfortable advising this woman in the forum that I was talking about. There's a film that came out maybe last year or a couple of years ago called Marriage Story on Netflix, and it's very well acted. It's got Scarlett Johansson, Adam Driver, very good actors. They play this couple who are getting divorced, and that's what you get to see. And although Adam Driver's character did cheat on Scarlett Johansson's character, that the man cheated on his wife, the script of the film indicates that that is not the main source of tension in this marriage. It's not the main grievance that Scarlett Johansson has. It's this kind of ambition that she has to be a great actress and to have her own life away from her husband, who's a theatre director. Their careers have been very intertwined while they've been married, and she wants to have a new life outside of what she thinks he can offer her. She wants to have her own achievements that aren't linked to him. Obviously, I don't know what the filmmakers' intentions were with this film, but I think it's supposed to be kind of a bittersweet ending, but I think it's just so sad. These two characters, they still kind of love each other. They're able to talk to each other. They communicate quite well. They make each other laugh still, even though they're getting divorced, and they seem to they still touch each other and hug and kiss a little bit, just in front of their son, and they seem to do quite well at getting along. And I don't know if, as a viewer, I'm supposed to think they're going to stay married, if I'm supposed to be happy that they're getting divorced. I don't know what the intention was, but it just seemed like such a petty grievance that Scarlett Johansson's character has. It seems like such a silly thing to get divorced over. Adam Driver's character, he's a good man, he treats her well, he's funny, he's attractive, and he's a really good father to their son. These are two good people who are able to be nice to each other, and they seem to quite like each other, but they aren't happy. Both of them have reached a point where they are no longer, the marriage isn't working. That's what they say these days, right? The marriage doesn't work. and they've tried to fix it. They keep working at it, but it doesn't work. And I don't want to come across as all judgmental, but that just seems wrong to me. When I decided to get married and when I said my marriage vows, I didn't just think that I'm staying in the marriage for, as long as it keeps making me happy, or as long as I keep being in love. Although those would be really great things, I hope that I do stay as in love as I am right now and as happy as I am right now. But that's not the reason that we're married. People are capable of doing really awful things to each other, and it's very hard to forgive that sort of behaviour. But I think people are also capable of change. I've heard some people say that marriage is just an excuse to let yourself go, to start taking the other person for granted, and if you can guarantee that that person is going to stay with you, then you don't need to put as much effort in because they aren't going to leave, and you've got them now. It's like they've been caught, and you can just treat them really badly, and they just have to stay. But I don't think that's true at all. I think if you are committed to staying in the relationship no matter what, then you'd better put in a lot of effort in order to make that relationship good. If you know that someone's going to get into bed next to you that night no matter what, then you don't want to piss them off that day. You don't want them to be angry at you when they come to bed. And if you know they're going to be sharing a bed with you for the next 10 years, then you better treat them well for the next 10 years. And if you're both committed to the relationship, then they should be reciprocating that effort that you're putting in. And I think that is the beautiful thing about marriage. It's not love exactly. Anyone can be in love. You don't need to be married to be in love. And it's nice to have a party, when you get married, you have a beautiful wedding, everyone looks beautiful, you say nice things to each other, you celebrate your love. But really, that's not what marriage is. I think marriage is just the little things that you do for someone, and maybe they're little and maybe they're big, but you build a life with someone, and you make that life as good as possible because you share it. And to make that person happy is to keep your life healthy. And I think to do that even when your marriage is and to continue putting in that effort even when the marriage is difficult, or even when you feel that other person isn't putting in the effort, I think it can be a really beautiful thing. It's such an admirable act, I think, to stay loyal to someone even when they haven't stayed loyal to you, to forgive someone else's inadequacies or things they've said or things they've done to you. That doesn't mean that I think you should be a doormat for your spouse and just let them treat you however they want. It's just about working on the marriage together, working together to keep each other happy. I feel very awkward making this video because I have only been married for a few years now, and I'm very happy and I'm very in love, and my husband's very in love with me, and I think he's happy as well, and we just have this little beautiful baby. And I know that some people watching this are divorced, and they may have had a really awful divorce, or they may have had a really awful marriage, and the last thing you want to hear is advice from someone like me who's in a situation like mine. But I just thought it was something worth noting, at least, the way that our cultural ideas around marriage have changed. I'm sure that a lot of you are going to want to tell me about your marriage or your divorce, and I'd love to hear about it. My husband and I are going to be going to Nigel Farage's Brexit party on the 31st of January. That's this Friday. It's in Parliament Square in London, and if you are going to that, then feel free to come and say hi or just to wave from a distance. I'd love for you to meet my husband. Unfortunately, it's a bit too late for this little one to come with us, so she's got a babysitter, so you won't be able to meet her. It's just going to be my husband and I and Sam Gregson, who has been on the channel. He'll be joining us for, I think, some or all of that. So I look forward to seeing you there, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.